This is a virtual tour of the Meadows UNESCO World Heritage Site and National Historic Site in Newfoundland, Canada. Meadows has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1978 and continues to be a popular destination for archaeology fanatics and tourists ever since then. The site contains many services such as hiking trails, picnic sites, interpretation signs, a visitor center, and reconstructions of 11th century Viking architecture. Here, in areas marked 1 through 4, are areas of interpretation. The first area of interpretation is the location of the Ingstad bust, UNESCO World Heritage Plaque, and the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada plaque. Area 2 is the meeting of the two worlds sculpture. Interpretation area number 3 is the Aboriginal campsites, and number 4 marks the reconstructed Norse buildings. This plan map shows the excavations of the Norse buildings at the site. A marks the location of a large hall, which was likely occupied by someone of high status and their close crew members. B and C mark the location of a house and a hut, likely for the lowest status individuals at the site. D marks the smallest of the 3 large halls, which archaeologists estimate was built for a large crew of workers. Location E is another hut that archaeologists speculate was used by women as a workshop. F is the largest building of the site, estimated to be about twice the size of Eric the Red's Greenland living quarters. This spot was likely the quarters of the leaders of each expedition, as it contained a private room for the leader, a large room likely used as a banquet hall, large storage rooms, and a location used for boat repair. G is another hut, probably used for either living space for low-status individuals or as a workshop. Finally, location J marks a smelting hut where archaeologists have found a furnace used to produce iron from ore. They found a charcoal kiln nearby and smelter in the middle of the hut. It is not believed that much iron was produced in this hut, and archaeologists believe only one smelting event actually occurred here. Features of the site include the meeting of the two worlds sculpture, a reconstruction of 3 Norse buildings, reconstructions of Viking canoes and artifacts, and nearby there is a visitor site called Norstead, where they have reconstructed a small Viking village for visitors to test their hand at different Viking skills. This is the meeting of the two worlds sculpture. It symbolizes the immigration into the New World from both Asia and Europe. This was the first location in the New World where these 2 different migratory groups would have converged. Reconstructions of the sod houses were based on the size measurements of one of the large halls and the styles of sod homes from Norse architecture around the time of AD 1000. At Norstead, visitors can see park employees dressed in attire which the Vikings may have worn, and performing tasks such as blacksmithing and weaving. Visitors can test their own skills at Viking ways of life, such as axe throwing and blacksmithing. They can dress themselves up as Vikings and even step aboard a replica of Leif Erikson's ship. Prehistoric occupation of Meadows consisted of 5 groups during 4 time periods before Norse occupation. These groups included the Maritime Archaic tradition from 4000 to 1000 BC. Then, the Gråwater tradition from 1000 to 500 BC. Following them was the Middle Dorset tradition nearly 1,000 years later from AD 400 to 750. Next came the Cowhead and Beaches traditions from AD 800 to 850. The Norse occupied the area during the 11th century AD, as indicated by radiocarbon dates taken on over 50 artifacts and wood remains. This site predates any sites attributed to Christopher Columbus's explorations during the 15th century by nearly 400 years. Artifacts from Norse occupation include wood debris, discarded nails from boat repair, and even a plank believed to come from a boat. The most prominent features that indicate Norse occupation are the remains of sod homes found at the site. Archaeologists found 8 buildings which they estimate would have been able to house 70 to 90 people. Following the Norse occupation at the site was the Little Passage tradition from AD 1200 to 1500. Archaeologists believe that indigenous people did not live at the site during the period of Norse occupation. Archaeology at the site began from the ideas of William Munn, a Newfoundlandish writer who in 1914 wrote stories which suggested the area to be a Norse site. In 1939, Finnish geologist Väinö Tanner wrote papers which had a similar theory about the location. The writings of both Tanner and Munn had inspired Danish archaeologist Jørgen Meldgaard to visit the site in 1956, in search of the grass mounds which would have been the sod homes. This inspired local residents to continue searching for the site until 1960. In 1960, Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and his daughter and wife, archaeologist Anne Stein Ingstad, arrived in Newfoundland. Locals found out Anne Stein Ingstad was an archaeologist, and they led her to the site of Meadows, where from 1961 to 1968 she led excavations at the area and proved its resemblance to 11th century Norse culture. In 1968, as a result of Ingstad's excavations, the Meadows archaeological site became a Canadian National Historic Site. Since then, more research has continued. In 1978, it became the first UNESCO World Heritage Site. This resulted in added protection and preservation, as well as funding for continued research at the site. Parks Canada is currently planning on rewriting a management plan to replace their 2003 version of the management. The 2003 management plan includes 4 key strategies. The first is to increase visitation and exposure through strategic marketing, engagement, and outreach. The second strategy is to better engage visitors through an enhanced Viking experience. The third key strategy in their management plan is to preserve the unique landscapes, habitats, and viewscapes, cultural resources, and outstanding universal value. Finally, the fourth key strategy is to maintain a strong relationship with indigenous and local communities. Meadows is located on the northernmost tip of Newfoundland, on the southeastern side of the Epovs Bay, at the end of Canadian Route 430. It is about 51 kilometers away from the airport in the nearest city, St. Anthony. Visitors should plan to spend around 3 hours at the site and a couple hours at Norstead, which is only 2 kilometers away from the archaeological site. It is about a 40-minute drive without traffic from the airport to the archaeological site. The site is open daily throughout the season. Admission is around $12 for adults and children and free for seniors and infants. From May to June, the park is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. From June to September, the park is open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And from September to October, the park is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meadows has a wheelchair-accessible site, visitor center, and restrooms. There are bilingual guides available from June to September. Links to information and references, as well as images, may be found in the following slides.